tuzalishe mali, tukuze kila chama kuwa benki, tuzidishe mapato kwa jamii zetu. Ufalme wetu, ufalme wetu, ufalme wetu. Your catalyst for development.
So welcome to our money conversations or our money talks with our finance expert, Mr. Joseph Kanani. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Wow. So let us know maybe what we hope to enjoy through this ride or even get to learn before we even begin the show.
Okay, basically finance is about money, pesa, na kila mtu anapenda pesa, I'm sure. It's basically about how do we actually get more money through what we do or what we shall do, and how do we save what we get so that we can be able to get more out of that kind of money.
Okay.
And also other aspects of finance, you
multiplication
know,
of money, investments.
Investments.
Chamas. You know, when people come together.
Yes. How do we, I mean, the dynamics of a chama, how where are some chamas great and where are some others are not great. And also things like taxation. We'll be discussing about the economy of the country.
Okay.
And such other things.
Wow. So I hope that you will enjoy this awesome ride, because the reason kila mtu anaamka kuchapa hustle, whether it's your side hustle or your main hustle, which is your biashara, is that we're able to make something. So how do we make this money, manage this money, and even multiply this money? So we shall begin this conversation with taxes in Kenya. Sasa kila mtu analia ushuru imepanda juu sana. So Joseph, kindly take us through taxation in Kenya.
Okay, thank you so much, Eunice. And when we talk about taxation, I think most of us, because of the news, we look at it from a very negative perspective.
Okay.
Tuanalia ushuru iko juu, even quoting Bible characters like Zakayo,
which is very mean, I think.
Tax collector.
Yeah.
And taxation is very, very, very important or very vital for a country.
For an economy.
Yes.
Or a country, okay.
Yes, because basically what a country does is what a private entity cannot do. Yani, wewe kama mtu, unafanya biashara yenye itakupatia pesa. Like, you can't go putting up street lights on the streets. Kwa sababu hiyo itakurudishia pesa aje.
Ni kweli. Now it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Or you can't go doing drainages in towns because hiyo haikupati income or something like employing teachers, you know, or employing the army. And the services that we enjoy from the government are services that if we were asked to pay, maybe hatungeweza. Imagine ukilipishwa kila kilomita ya barabara yenye unapita, unalipa pesa.
Wow, that would be very detrimental for anybody.
Or if the army goes to war, alafu unaambiwa sasa the army is in Somali, so everyone now has to contribute money for the protection of the country. So because those things the private entities cannot be able to do, the government has to do them. And that's why the government every year comes up with a budget.
Okay.
In economic terms, it's actually an expenditure budget. The government spends
money.
Exactly. It spends money on education. It spends money on health.
The roads that we see.
The infrastructure.
Yeah,
yes, the roads, the schools, etc. Now, how it does it might be the difference between how it's supposed to be done. Kama imefanywa vizuri unasikia umeridhika, or it has been done wrongly na unaona hupati
any benefit
from that. Yeah. So taxation, maybe even to look at it from a biblical perspective. Do you know it was started in Egypt in the book of Genesis by Joseph.
Your namesake. Maybe that's why.
My namesake.
That's why you became a finance expert.
I think so, yeah. Because when Joseph went to he was sold by his brothers to Egypt. You know the biblical story, how it goes.
Yeah.
And he had favor before the king of Egypt, all the pharaohs, and he was made a governor. And he had this dream where there was 7 years of plenty and 7 years of drought that were coming.
True. Yeah, very true.
So to prepare for the years of drought, he had to gather things, that is grains, ama food yenye the Egyptians or the rest of the world would eat when there were years of drought. And so he had to tell everyone who was farming, who was doing grazing, who was doing whatever kind of business, whatever they get, they had to put a portion towards the state stores. So that was where taxation started. Everyone who was farming had to put some grain to the stores. And that is why during the years of drought, they were able to survive, and even other nations were able to get help from Egypt because they were able to store it. So tax ni kitu ya kitambo.
Imeanza from our biblical stories.
Exactly. Now, there are different kinds of taxes, but to understand taxes, the basic definition or the academic definition is a tax is a levy on an income.
A levy on an income.
Yes.
Okay.
That is, lazima kukuwe na mapato, ndio hiyo mapato ikatwe, ndio serikali ichukue. So a levy on an income. So what is an income then? Hiyo ndio swali tunafaa kujibu. Income ni nini? One, there are people who get salaries.
Oh yeah, true.
So if you're employed, at the end of the month you get a salary, that is an income.
Yeah.
Two, if you're in business and you make sales. So those sales, in some ways, the government sees it as an income.
Because you're generating a profit.
Not even the profit,
no,
just the sales.
Whether there's a profit or not.
Whether there's a profit or not.
Oh my goodness.
Then the third is now the profit, what you're saying. And as we know, profit ni mapato minus the expenses.
Exactly, true.
So what is left is the profit.
Yeah.
Even that is tax, that is an income. For people with rental properties, the rent is an income.
Yeah, true.
If you invest in the stock exchange and you get dividends at the end of the year, the dividend is an income.
Yeah.
If you put money maybe in a bank and that money
so
earns
even
an
a
interest,
dividend is it is taxed.
Kila kitu, as long as it's an income.
Yenyewe kweli naona kwa nini watu wanaitwa majina zingine.
Yeah, that is the reason why. Because any transaction that involves making money or receiving money, at some point shall be taxed. Even transferring property. Tunanunua shamba kutoka huyu mtu
to the other person.
There will be a tax on that. So the government tries to maximize what we call the tax base. Yani itafute njia mingi sana za
kutafuta hizi pesa, kutoza ushuru.
Kutafuta hizi pesa.
Tuongelee kutoza.
Yeah.
Kutoza ushuru,
And I think that is the reason why now the rates and the sources of tax for the government zinakuwa mingi mpaka watu wanaanza kusema kuna mzigo.
Kuna mzigo hii.
Yeah.
Because we have felt the weight of kukatwa ushuru, you know? Ni kweli.
So if we go to each category, maybe very quickly, the first one would be the income tax from employment. If you're employed and you're earning a salary, then the taxman wants a portion of that. Now, for the longest time up to now, if you earn anything above 24,000 shillings,
you're taxed.
You're taxed. Yeah.
Below 24, you don't pay tax.
Okay, what happens is it goes in what we call bands. There's a band for 10%, and that one starts at 24,000.
Oh, okay.
So if you earn 24,000, you're taxed 10% of that amount.
The gross?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is 2,400. But the government also has something they call a personal relief. That whatever taxes you're paying, they give you a relief of 2,400. So that means if you're earning 24,000 and you've been taxed the 2,400, then you're given the relief of 2,400. So that's why we are saying anything from 24 going downwards, it's like you're paying zero taxes.
Oh, nice. Interesting.
Yeah. But if the income starts, you generate more than 24,000, the extra amount is also taxed. So they tax an extra band at 25%, then it's actually the next 8,333 shillings is taxed at 25%.
Wow.
So if you're earning anything, maybe 25, so you'll take 25 minus 24, so that extra amount at 25%.
Wow.
If you're earning 30, the same thing. Then anything above now, the 24 plus 8,000, it's taxed at 30%. And before the recent Finance Act,
okay, the 2023 one,
yeah,
that has
the one that has
mefanya
everyone
tuandamane.
yeah, before then, it was if you are earning 100,000, you're taxed at 30%. If you're earning 500,000, 30%. If you're earning 800, 30. If you're earning 1 million, 30%.
Oh my goodness.
If you're earning even 10 million. So I think the government saw that there was some sort of inequality.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
You're earning 1 million shillings and you're deducted
You're taxed
30%
at the same rate as someone who is
earning
100
50,000 or 50,000.
Yes.
Oh goodness. Wow. Hey, that is something I actually didn't even know.
Yes.
And you see, I think the problem with our society is some levels of ignorance.
Yes.
We had an uproar of e-Finance Act, but we didn't even know what does it even entail. What is actually even being introduced in this new Finance Act. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what she said, if I may comment, kidogo too, even the sources, our sources of information are actually the politicians bickering on
and then we become emotional on things we don't even understand, because why should somebody pay tax at the same rate, 50,000 to 1 million? And yeah, now I see some light here.
But the good thing is it was amended a little bit in the recent one, so that now people earning from 500,000 to around 800,000, the tax rate has been increased to 32.5%. And then those earning 800,000 and above to 35%.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Again, not so punitive. It's not too
very punitive.
Yeah,
yes.
true.
But also there is a question that people ask. You know, people say, bona tusi tax wenye wako na pesa, na wenye hawana pesa tusiwa tax. Because obviously, maybe like, if you look at the CEOs of these big banks, nasikia mtu anapata income ya 10 million per month. Mbona wetu simtax like 50%?
100% actually.
Mbona? Na huyu mwenye ana earn 30,000 tuachane tu naye.
And I think that somehow explains the difference, why the gap between the rich and the poor in this nation.
Yes.
Some of these things need to actually be fixed through these laws.
Exactly. But now the other thing that the Finance Act did is that after even maybe putting those people to earn that amount, and the other people who are earning, like we have said right now, the person who was earning 24,000 was not paying taxes because at 10% plus the relief gets 0.
Yeah.
But they introduced the housing levy, which which no matter what you would want to call it, it's a tax.
It is a tax, yes.
And now this tax is irrespective of how much you're earning, you have to contribute 1.5% of your salary, and the employer has to contribute 1.5%.
So that now it is 3%.
3%.
Yeah.
So even those who are not being taxed early because they were earning 24,000, now they'll have to pay the housing levy tax.
So now here, there's the 1.5 and the 1.5. So meaning now the employer is also losing a chunk of their...
Yes. The employer now has an extra cost of 1.5% for every employee.
Now, would the ripple effect of this now be like, let's say employers begin to say, then if you're going to pay this, then we need to also now reduce your salaries. Are there conversations like those?
Definitely they are. And those conversations started actually earlier because there was also another, the NSSF Act that requires also the employers, they increased the bans again, the amount. Initially, people were being deducted 200 for NSSF.
Yeah, for the longest time, I think I remember the 200 shillings.
And the employer 200, so a total of 400. But now it has been increased to 2160. So the employee pays now 1080, and the employer 1080. So what you're saying is true. That conversation is actually there now, that the employer is also at pain, because now they have to pay the increased NSSF rates. They have to pay now the housing levy. Plus, because of all these taxes, people are demanding an increase in salaries. So yeah, we might be feeling that later in the economy, when people start losing jobs, because employers also want to maximize their profit by reducing the taxes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the other tax now, from the income tax.
Now, from the individual, now we go to businesses.
Yeah, true.
And you know, businesses could be in different ways. One, they are sole proprietors. Two, they are partnerships. And three, they are companies. Yeah. So the sole proprietor and the partner, they are seen as individuals doing a business.
Yeah.
Meaning, whatever income that is generated from the sole proprietorship or from the partnership, it will be taxed as an income for the individual. But the good thing about a business taxing for a business is that there's something that they introduced that is called a turnover tax, that looks at the total revenue
that a business has collected.
And then it is taxed. But the normal way before that was introduced was that you'd take your sales, you minus your expenses, and then you're taxed on the profit. Such that even if your expenses are more than your income,
the profit now,
yes, you'd get what we'd call a negative tax. Or in accounting terms, it's a tax asset, where you can now use that. Let's say you've made sales of 100,000, losses or rather expenses of 150. So you have a loss of 50,000.
Yeah.
So if that loss is taxed at 30%, it would be 15,000, negative 15,000. So if next year you make a profit of 100,000 and you're taxed at 30%, which would be 30,000 tax, you'd use the loss of 15,000 and offset it against the profit of that. So you pay the net. And people actually do that. Or when people are filing their returns, they have to take note of. That is why keeping business records is very important.
Very important, yeah.
So that you have whether you've made a profit
or a loss.
Then another very interesting aspect in taxation for businesses is that in accounting, we have so many expenses.
In accounting?
Yes, like for instance, if you pay rent is an expense.
Yeah, for the business now.
Yes, if you're having machinery or motor vehicles and they have wear and tear, depreciation, that is an expense.
Wow.
If people refuse to pay you your debts, we call them bad debts, that's also an expense.
An expense on my side now. Yes. So when I'm balancing my balance sheet, so there's this and...
Exactly. So you have to know which expenses are there. But when it comes to tax, there are some expenses that are not seen as expenses. You're not allowed to deduct them as you'd have done when you're doing your accounting. For instance, depreciation. Like if your vehicle has wear and tear and you have a depreciation of 20,000, so you cannot use that figure of 20,000 to minus from your incomes to get your profit or loss.
Wow. Wow.
So, but I think that is now on a more technical aspect.
I think now I'll become so good with this. When you're running your business, some of these things, this knowledge actually is what we were never actually even taught in school. Even what we learned in school and applying it in present day Kenya is a totally different affair.
Yes.
True.
Because I think that's why people need maybe to get those skills in business, especially in such simple things like taxation, because you could actually be saving a lot of money by maybe doing the correct accounting and deducting the correct expenses instead of just paying taxes. Now, for a company, the same thing. They get the incomes, they minus the expenses, they tax the profit. Now, the difference between a company and a sole proprietorship or a partnership, as you've said, is that in a sole proprietorship, it's the individual who will be taxed.
It is true.
Yeah. So if they come to your business and you're a sole proprietorship, it is Eunice who will pay that tax.
Yeah, true.
But if it was a company, then it's the company that would pay
the tax now.
Yes. Then the second difference is that if it is you as an individual who is paying the tax, you'll pay it in those tax bands that you had discussed earlier. That the first 24,000, 10%.
Yeah, true.
The next amount, 25%. The next amount, 30, that's 2.5. If it's excess of 800,000, 35%. But if it's for a company, the tax rate is 30%.
Wow.
It's flat 30%.
No matter, even if it doesn't matter whether you're a manufacturer or a small entity, a limited company.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're Eunice company or Safaricom, 30%.
Again,
okay, there are very special cases where that tax rate is not applied. For instance, to encourage exporting, companies that start in the export processing zone, the EPZ, they're given what we call a tax holiday. Like they're told, when you establish your company here, for the next maybe 5 years, you'll pay 0 taxes. So there are those special concessions, but generally the rate is 30%. Whether you're Safaricom making billions or Eunice is making hundreds of thousands, the tax rate is the same.
Wow. So maybe in the next, we have about 4 minutes before we end this part 1 of this conversation on taxes in Kenya. Tell us about tax evasion and...
Okay, that is a good topic, especially for a whole episode. But to give you just a snippet, you remember in the past few years, you've seen what has been happening to Keroche breweries.
Yeah.
The taxman shutting off the breweries every now and then, arresting the proprietors because of what we call tax evasion, which is an illegal way of not paying taxes, where you're supposed to pay a certain amount of tax. It's clear that you're supposed to pay it. It's been calculated. You don't. Most people, especially those who deal with vatable goods, that is VAT, you know, at the end of every month, whatever you've sold and you have earned the VAT on it, you're supposed to pay it to the government.
Yeah, true.
So if you don't, then you are evading that tax. And when you're caught, you'll pay it plus interest and penalties. If you don't pay, you're imprisoned.
What?
But to avoid all this, there is tax avoidance. Yes. So tax avoidance just basically means arranging your affairs in a certain way so that you avoid paying those taxes.
So how can a business avoid paying tax?
I can give you a very good example. Like there are people who work at home and they pay rent to their landlords. And when they get their incomes, let's just use a very basic example. You get an income of 100,000 and you're paying taxes at the rate of 30%. So you're supposed to pay 30% of 100, which is 30,000, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you're using your house for business, then why shouldn't you not declare that house as one of your business expenses?
Nice.
So in that case, so you're able now to deduct the 15,000 from the 100,000 before you calculate the amount that you're supposed to pay for tax.
So that's how people are able to avoid tax.
You're able to avoid taxes. And in so many other ways that we shall discuss.
Wow. So, and maybe this is something we can also keep on getting into or delving into as we progress with these conversations concerning money and business money. So tell us about another thing that caused a very huge uproar on the digital tax, you know, for people who are creating content. Give us your input on that.
I think the government realized that they were sitting on a gold mine.
It is a gold mine, yes.
Because one of the industries that has emerged is the creative industry.
Yeah.
People are using the social media platforms to make money.
Yeah.
Through people are becoming influencers and they're paid to advertise on their channels.
Yeah.
And also, if you do like something like YouTube monetization, you were supposed to, you're paid a certain amount of money at the end of the month, etc.
And which is now that's an income basically.
That is an income, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it would be unfair if those people were told not to pay taxes because they are also earning an income.
Yeah, it is true.
And they are earning money that has been paid by, you see, a business like yours is paying them to advertise. So for you it's an expense, then why shouldn't for them
why
not
should
be an
they
income
not
that,
pay exactly pay some tax? Yeah.
And it has two aspects. One, it has a withholding tax aspect of 5%. This means that if you are an influencer, you have your YouTube channel, and I want to advertise my product. If I pay you that amount that I'm going to pay you, which is, let's say, 20,000 shillings, I should not pay you the full 20,000. I should pay you 20,000 minus 5%. In other words, I will withhold a 5%. This amount that I've withheld, I'll give it to the government. It's like I've paid the tax on your behalf.
It is like you unanizichukua kwa nguvu.
The government
somehow.
Yes.
Ama now the government demands that I withhold this amount of money from an entity.
Yes.
And then now me as an entity now
submit it to
the government or KRA. Yeah.
And the second aspect is that at the end of the year, since this is a business, you're supposed also to calculate your total incomes minus total expenses. Then you get your profit or loss. Then you calculate maybe 30% of that profit. Then you pay the government now the corporate tax rate for your company. But since you had already paid the withholding taxes, you are allowed to deduct those taxes that you paid from the final amount that you're paying to the government at the end of the year. It's complicated kidogo, but I think we shall leave our contacts for your Facebook and YouTube so that people can also contact us. And also, another thing that also caused an uproar was the turnover tax.
Yeah, for businesses, that
For
was
businesses,
also
yes.
huge. Yeah, true.
Because in the turnover tax, you're not allowed to deduct your expenses. You're told if you're earning every, in a year, if you're making an income of between 1 million shillings and 25 million shillings, then you pay turnover tax of 3% on your total sales.
Wow. Very punitive again.
Very punitive. Because
for businesses.
Yes. Because that
now
means
I see why. What waliandamana. Because, hey, this is information one. Yeah. Politicians will not even come and tell us the truth.
They also don't understand.
They also, maybe they've not even read these documents.
Or even if they read it, probably, no, it's the same way. As you've said, a politician will have a background of maybe he was a primary school teacher or a farmer or in some other field. So when you now bring economic and accounting jargon to them,
hawaelewi. Ni kweli.
But lazima waseme kitu because they want to run for another election.
Exactly. And make us, emotional yes. about taxation na masufuria na nini. That was this is quite very intense for me, and especially a sole proprietor who is growing a business. That is very important information.
Yes.
So kindly look at that camera as we come to the end of part one of this conversation on our monies, business money, personal finances. Let them know how they can reach you if anybody desires to consult further.
Okay, so basically they say that the two certainties in life is death and taxes. And each might cost the other. Because if you die, there's a stamped tax that will be paid on your certificate. If you have a lot of taxes pending and the government comes for you, you might die. So it's always good, first of all, to oblige, that is, pay the government its dues. Even Jesus said that. And then other things later. So I'm Joseph from Ufalme Wetu. Our contact details are here. And if you're watching this from the YouTube channel, documents on taxation can be downloaded below. Asante.
Sisi wananchi ndio wenye ufalme, tutafute ujuzi, tuzalishe mali, tukuze kila chama kuwa benki, tuzidishe mapato kwa jamii. ufalme wetu, ufalme wetu. Your catalyst for development.